Stop. Before you drop that gorgeous OB peacock into your Mbuna tank, I need 30 seconds of your time. Just 30 seconds. Because what you are about to do is the aquarium equivalent of releasing a runway model into a UFC cage and calling it a social experiment. Spoiler alert, the model does not win. Here is what the pet store told you. They are all from Lake Malawi. Same lake, same water, same family. Drop them together, watch the colors, enjoy the tank. Here is what the pet store did not tell you. Lake Malawi is roughly the size of Belgium. And just like Belgium, different parts of it have completely different cultures, completely different rules, and absolutely no interest in getting along with each other. Your Mbuna grew up in the rocky shallows, fighting for every centimeter of territory since the day it was born. It has opinions, strong ones, about rocks, about who owns which rock, about you, frankly. Your peacock grew up in the open sandy areas, gliding through calm water, displaying its colors, living its best life. These two fish do not speak the same language. They do not share the same social rules. And when you put them together without a strategy, you do not get a community tank. You get an underground fight club where your peacock is permanently on the losing side and has absolutely no idea why his life went so wrong. Today we are going through all of it. The dietary disaster that wipes out Mbuna colonies from the inside out. The rockwork mistake that turns your peacock's home into a minefield. The overstocking myth that sounds like genius advice until it spectacularly is not. And the alpha mismatch that is probably making one of your fish miserable right now, while the other one enjoys every second of it. Drop a comment before we start. Who is the CEO of aggression in your tank right now? Which fish thinks it owns the entire operation? I want to know. And I have a feeling some of you are about to realize the answer has been obvious this whole time. Let's get into it. Let's deal with the big lie first, because it is the foundation of every mixed tank disaster, and it sounds so reasonable that nobody questions it. Yes, Mbuna and peacocks are both from Lake Malawi. This is true. This is also about as useful as saying that wolves and golden retrievers are both from Earth, so they should share a yard just fine. Lake Malawi has two completely different ecosystems running simultaneously. The rocky shoreline and the open sandy floor. These two environments are so different from each other that the fish that evolved in each one developed completely different bodies, completely different behaviors, and completely different rules for how to exist in the world. Mbuna are rockfish. The word Mbuna literally means rockfish. They evolved in one of the most competitive environments in freshwater, where every rock, every cave, every centimeter of territory is worth fighting for, because territory means food, shelter, and breeding rights. Mbuna do not relax. Mbuna do not take days off. Mbuna are, and I say this with genuine respect, tiny absolute psychopaths who have been optimized by millions of years of evolution to never back down. Peacocks evolved in completely different conditions. Open water, sandy substrate, plenty of space. Their entire existence is built around display rather than combat. Their aggression is real, but it is a different kind. It is show aggression. Look how colorful I am. Look how dominant I appear. It is a performance. Mbuna aggression is not a performance. Mbuna aggression is a lifestyle. When you put these two fish together, your peacock is performing for an audience that does not understand the show. And your Mbuna is doing what it has always done, taking territory. Your peacock, who has never in its life needed to actually fight for survival, is suddenly in a world where the rules are completely different and nobody gave it the memo. Same lake, different worlds, and your mixed tank is where those worlds collide. Now let's talk about the mistake that destroys more mixed tanks than aggression ever does. And it happens slowly enough that by the time you see it, the damage has been building for weeks. Mbuna are herbivores. Not technically herbivores. Not mostly herbivores. True herbivores. In Lake Malawi, they spend their entire existence scraping algae off rocks. Their digestive systems are long, slow, built specifically to process plant material. That is what they are designed for. That is what millions of years of evolution built them for. Peacocks are omnivores. They eat insects, small crustaceans, protein-rich foods. Their digestive systems handle protein efficiently. Now you have a mixed tank. You grab the cichlid pellets that say suitable for African cichlids. You drop them in, everyone eats, everyone looks happy. You feel like you are doing a great job. What you are actually doing is feeding steak to an underwater cow every single day. When Mbuna eat high-protein food consistently, their digestive system cannot process it properly. The food sits in the gut longer than it should. Bacteria that normally exist in small numbers proliferate because they now have the excess material to do so. The gut becomes inflamed, internal pressure builds, and then one morning a fish looks slightly bloated. 3 days later, it looks worse. By the time Malawi bloat is visibly obvious, it is already very difficult to reverse. You killed them with kindness and with steak. The fix in a mixed tank requires feeding strategy. Spirulina-based food for your mbuna, dropped in multiple spots simultaneously so they eat it without competing with peacocks. Higher protein pellets for your peacocks in the open water zone. It requires intention. It requires accepting that you cannot just drop one food in and walk away. A mixed tank is not harder than a species-specific setup, but it is not easier either. And feeding is the first place that complexity costs you if you ignore it. Here is a question. When you designed your mixed tank, who did you design it for? If the answer is it looked good to me, then you designed it for yourself. And your fish are living in a tank that was optimized for your aesthetic preferences rather than their behavioral needs. Which is fine for a painting, less fine for living animals with very specific spatial requirements. Mbuna need rockwork, dense, complex, cave-heavy rockwork that creates dozens of territories, breaks sight lines constantly, and gives every fish the ability to disappear from view when it needs to. Without enough rocks, mbuna aggression does not decrease. It concentrates. Instead of 10 fish, each defending a small territory, you get 1 fish defending the entire tank and 9 fish with nowhere to go. It is not a home. It is a nuclear bunker that only 1 fish is allowed to enter. Peacocks need open water. They are built to swim, to display, to move through space in the long gliding patterns that make their colors visible. A tank filled wall-to-wall with rocky structures is not a home for a peacock. It is an obstacle course that blocks movement and eliminates the open water that makes its entire behavioral world possible. These two requirements pull in opposite directions, and most mixed tanks compromise on both, ending up with a tank that has too many rocks for the peacocks and not enough for the mbuna. Nobody's happy. The fish are just living in each other's wrong version of the world. The solution is zones. Rock structures concentrated at the ends and back of the tank, creating the territorial complexity mbuna need. Open central area preserved for peacocks to use as their display space in swimming corridor. The two populations occupy different parts of the same tank rather than fighting over the same space. Your mbuna is not aggressive because it is mean. It is aggressive because it evolved in conditions where not being aggressive meant losing everything. Give it what it evolved for, and that aggression finds its correct outlet. Take those conditions away, and the aggression has nowhere to go except toward every other fish in the tank. Overstocking, the most confidently given advice in the African cichlid hobby, and the advice that causes more disasters than almost anything else when applied without understanding what it actually means. You have heard it. Add more fish, dilute the aggression, spread the targeting so thin that no single fish becomes a permanent victim. This is true, and it is also one of the most dangerous half-truths in this hobby because the part that makes it work is the part nobody mentions. Overstocking only works under specific conditions. The filtration must be significantly oversized. The species selection must be compatible. The tank must be large enough that high density does not create territorial compression that makes aggression worse. When someone tells you to overstock your mixed tank without addressing all of those conditions, they are giving you the conclusion without the context. And the conclusion without the context is how you turn a management strategy into a disaster. Here is what actually happens when you overstock a system that is not built for it. Waste production exceeds filtration capacity. Water quality drops. The fish are now managing social stress and water quality stress simultaneously. Suppressed immune systems across the entire tank. And Malawi bloat, which absolutely loves this environment, starts appearing in fish that should have been completely fine. The warden of a bad mixed tank is not the aggressive mbuna. The warden is the compromised water that results from overstocking a system that was not designed for it. Overstocking works, but it works when the whole system is built for it, not when fish are crammed together and the rest of the infrastructure is just crossed fingers. Every tank has one. The fish that decided on day one that it owns the entire operation, the CEO of aggression, the fish that runs the hierarchy and that other fish check in with before doing anything. In a species-specific tank, this is usually fine. The dominant fish establishes, the hierarchy settles, and things maintain. The CEO is aggressive, but the aggression follows rules that everyone in the tank evolved to understand. In a mixed tank, the CEO problem gets complicated. Certain Mbuna, and Melanochromis in particular, are in a completely different category of aggression from most fish in this hobby. These are not fish that are a bit territorial. These are fish that will methodically, persistently, and without apparent remorse, make life impossible for any fish they decide is a problem, which in a mixed tank is often every other fish in the tank. When a Melanochromis becomes the alpha in a mixed tank, the tank does not have a CEO. It has a warlord, and your peacocks, which are not built for sustained combat and do not have the behavioral toolkit to respond to that level of aggression, are not experiencing a social hierarchy. They are experiencing a permanent threat with no resolution. A peacock under this kind of pressure does not fight back. It hides, it stops displaying, it stops eating properly. Its colors fade. It occupies the smallest possible territory and attempts to become invisible. And because cichlids are not built to live in a state of permanent hiding, the chronic stress accumulates in exactly the ways you do not want. This is not a fair fight. It never was. It is like putting a runway model in a cage with an MMA fighter. One fish lives in permanent therapy, the other lives to be a jerk. Spoiler alert, the model does not win. If you have a Melanochromis in a mixed tank right now, watch it specifically. Watch what happens to other fish in its proximity. Watch feeding behavior. Watch how much of the tank your other fish are actually using versus the compressed corner they have retreated to. The tank will tell you whether the alpha is a CEO or a warlord. You just have to pay attention. All right, after everything I just told you, here is the question you actually came here with. Can a mixed Mbuna and peacock tank work? Yes, with conditions. The tank needs to be large enough that the populations can establish functional separation. A 75-gallon is the minimum. A 125-gallon is where it starts to become genuinely manageable. More space means more room for two populations to occupy different zones without constant overlap. Species selection within each group matters as much as the group itself. Not all Mbuna are equally aggressive. Yellow labs, Ace, certain Pseudotropheus species are more compatible with a mixed setup than the genuinely psychopathic end of the Mbuna spectrum. The difference between a yellow lab and a Melanochromis in a mixed tank is the difference between a functioning ecosystem and a slow-motion disaster. Introduce fish in the right order. Peacocks go in first, allowed to settle before Mbuna are introduced. Mbuna go in as a group rather than individually. Individual introductions to an established tank create the punching bag dynamic. Group introductions spread the initial aggression more evenly. Feed with intention. Spirulina-based food for Mbuna spread across multiple spots. Higher protein for peacocks in the open water zone. Except that feeding a mixed tank requires more attention than a single species setup and plan accordingly. Filtration significantly oversized. Not slightly, significantly. For the fish load you plan to keep, filter as if the tank has twice as many fish. Then maintain that filtration consistently. A mixed tank done correctly is one of the most visually striking setups in freshwater. The color of peacocks combined with the energy of Mbuna in a well-designed tank is genuinely spectacular. But it requires building the system correctly from the beginning rather than hoping the fish figure it out. All right, before we close this out, there are 5 more things I need to tell you. And these are the ones that nobody talks about until it is too late. So stay with me, because this is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about females. Because if the male aggression dynamic in a mixed tank is a campfire, adding a female is throwing a can of gasoline on it and then acting surprised when the house burns down. Here is what happens. You have your mixed tank. Males are displaying, hierarchy is mostly stable, things are manageable. Then you add one female. That female is now the most important object in the tank. Every male, Mbuna and peacock alike, has immediately updated their priority list. The careful hierarchy they spent weeks negotiating is now irrelevant. What matters now is the female, and every male in that tank is willing to do whatever it takes to make sure she notices them and not the fish next to them. Adding a single female Mbuna to a mixed tank is the aquarium equivalent of bringing the last drink to a bar full of 20 drunk boxers and telling them whoever wins gets it. That female is there, the males are aware, and peace in that tank is now officially just a memory. The rule in mixed tanks is simple. Either commit to a proper gender ratio, multiple females per male, carefully selected for the species you are keeping, or keep a male-only display tank. A single female with no plan is not an addition, it is a detonator. Now let's talk about water changes, and specifically about what happens when you skip them. You already know water changes matter. Everybody in this hobby knows water changes matter, and yet somehow the bucket still does not get picked up every week. I understand. Life happens. The tank looks fine. What is 1 week going to do? Here is what 1 week does. Nitrates rise. And rising nitrates in a cichlid tank do not just affect water quality, they affect behavior. There is a reason experienced keepers describe a tank before a water change as tense and the same tank after a water change as calm. It is not imagination, it is chemistry. Mbuna under elevated nitrate load become more reactive. Aggression triggers faster, escalates further, and de-escalates more slowly. The fish that normally chases for 3 seconds and moves on is now chasing for 30. The fish that normally accepts a territorial boundary is now testing it constantly. Your tank does not look dramatically different, but the internal dial on every fish's aggression response has been turned up. Skipping water changes in a mixed tank is not just a water quality decision, it is a behavioral decision. You are choosing to turn up the pressure on every social interaction in that tank simultaneously. And in a mixed tank where the social dynamics are already complicated, that pressure finds the weakest points first. The nitrate spike is like traffic. A little traffic and everyone manages. Too much traffic and even the calmest driver starts leaning on the horn. Except in your tank, the horn is a set of teeth and the target is the most colorful fish in the setup. Pick up the bucket. There is no other way through this. Quarantine, I know you have heard this before. And every single time you buy a new fish, you think about it for approximately 4 seconds and then put the fish directly in the main tank because it looks healthy and the quarantine tank is not set up. And honestly, how bad could it really be? Very bad. The answer is very bad. Here is the thing about a new fish that looks healthy in the store. Looking healthy and being healthy are two completely different things. Early stage parasites do not show. Internal infections do not show. Bacterial loads that are being suppressed by the fish's immune system under normal conditions do not show. The fish looks fine. It is eating. It is swimming. It is exactly the fish you wanted. And then it goes into your tank? And the stress of transport, new water chemistry, new tank mates, and a new social hierarchy suppresses its immune system just enough. And whatever it was carrying that was not showing before, starts showing now. In your main tank, with all your other fish. Putting a new fish directly into your main tank without quarantine is inviting a stranger into your house without checking what they brought with them. Maybe they are wonderful. Maybe they brought an internal parasite army, and your established colony is about to find out what that looks like up close. A quarantine tank does not need to be impressive. A simple setup, a cycled sponge filter, a heater, some PVC pipe for hiding spots. 4 weeks, that is all. 4 weeks to confirm the fish is actually healthy and not just performing health convincingly. 4 weeks that protects every fish you have already invested time and money into building a colony around. It is not a luxury, it is the lock on the door. Let's talk about lighting, because most people think of aquarium lighting as aesthetics. Make the fish look good, show off the colors, keep the plants growing if you have any. And yes, it does all of that. It also controls your fish's sense of time. And time in a cichlid tank is more important than most people realize. When the lights are on, fish are active, alert, and socially engaged. Hierarchies are being maintained. Territories are being patrolled. Aggression is running at whatever the tank's current baseline is. When the lights go off, fish rest. The social engine slows down, cortisol drops, the tank breathes. Leave the lights running for 14 hours a day and your fish never fully rest. They are running their stress systems continuously without adequate downtime. And fish that never fully rest are fish that are perpetually more reactive, more aggressive, and more susceptible to the behavioral cascade that turns a manageable mixed tank into a chaotic one. The target is 10 to 12 hours of light, not 14. Not because your fish will stage a protest if you go over, but because that extra 2 hours is the difference between a fish that had time to recover overnight and a fish that woke up already at a 7 on a scale of 10. And while we are here, sudden light changes are a stress event every single time they happen. Lights at full power with no ramp up, everything off with no transition. Every day, it is minor individually. Across months, it adds to the chronic background stress that makes every other problem in a mixed tank worse. Give them a sunrise. Give them a sunset. Your fish will be calmer, less reactive, and your tank will be noticeably more stable. And you will have fewer algae problems because consistent lighting cycles produce more predictable algae growth patterns that are easier to manage. That is a bonus nobody tells you about. Last one, and this one is personal for anyone who has ever tried to remove a specific fish from an established cichlid tank. At some point in your mixed tank journey, you will need to catch a specific fish. Maybe the melanochromis finally crossed a line. Maybe one fish is sick and needs quarantine. Maybe the hierarchy shifted and one fish needs to come out before it does serious damage. Whatever the reason, you need to get that one specific fish out of the tank, and that fish will not cooperate. What follows is a uniquely humbling experience. You put the net in the water. The target fish immediately goes to the opposite end of the tank. You move toward it. It moves away. You try to corner it. It goes through a gap you did not know existed. You accidentally herd 3 other fish into the net that are not the fish you want. You try again. The target is now hiding behind the largest rock in the setup, watching you with what can only be described as contempt. 20 minutes later, the entire tank has been rearranged. Every fish is stressed. Your peacocks are looking at you like you personally dismantled their home, which you did. And the fish you were trying to catch is sitting calmly in an open area of the tank because it knows you have given up for now. Here is the actual technique that saves you from this. Before you try to catch a specific fish, rearrange the decor first. Remove the structures the target fish hides behind. Make the tank temporarily less complex so the fish has fewer options. Then net it. It is still not easy, but it is easier than trying to catch a cichlid in a fully decorated tank with everything working in the fish's favor and nothing working in yours. And if the fish you need to remove is the most aggressive fish in the tank, the one that knows the tank better than you do and has been living there for months, consider removing the decorations entirely and doing a full temporary breakdown of the setup to catch it. Yes, that is extreme. Yes, it will stress everyone. But sometimes the cost of removing one fish is less than the cost of leaving it in there. If you have survived a full tank breakdown to remove one aggressive fish, drop it in the comments. I want to hear the story because there is a specific kind of aquarium keeper who has been through that experience, and they all have the same look in their eyes afterward. So there you have it. One tank, 2 worlds, and a social experiment that nobody asked the fish to participate in, but everyone is fully committed to whether they like it or not. If you are staring at your mixed tank right now with a slightly different expression than you had 20 minutes ago, good. That means something landed. And if you are mentally going through your fish one by one trying to figure out which one is the problem, I am going to save you some time. You already know which one it is. You have always known. You just called it personality before today. Here is the thing about cichlids that nobody puts on the care sheet. They are not pretending. Your mbuna is not aggressive because it is having a rough week. It does not need therapy. It does not need a talking to. It is operating on millions of years of code that says this rock is mine, and everything that comes near it is a problem. That code does not have an off switch. You can work with it, design around it, respect it. You cannot argue it out of existence with better decorations. Your peacock is not hiding because it is shy. It is hiding because it was dropped into a UFC cage, and it is a runway model, and it has correctly assessed the situation. It is not being dramatic. It is being accurate. And somewhere in your tank right now, there is a fish that is running the whole operation so quietly that you have never once looked at it and thought that one is in charge. But it is. It has been since week 1. And every fish in that tank knows it except you. You have seen this dynamic before, just usually with more clothes involved. Drop a comment. Tell me which fish in your tank is the real power. Not the loudest one, not the one that chases everything. The one that moves through the tank and everything adjusts slightly without anyone making a scene about it. Expose it, I want to know. And if any part of this video made you think about something that had nothing to do with fish, that is not a coincidence. A tank is just a system, and systems tell the truth about pressure and hierarchy and who actually holds the room. Whether you are watching carefully or not, you just usually do not have a glass front on the system. Dark Cichlids is built for people who stopped looking at the obvious part first. People who looked at a tank long enough that it started teaching them things they did not expect to learn from a glass box full of water. The fish are just where it starts. Keep your water clean. Keep your rocks stable. And whatever you do, figure out which fish you are in every room you walk into. Because if you do not figure it out yourself, the mbuna will figure it out for you. Stay dark.